Okay, well, I'm like 5, 6 days late on this one. Should really have done this back when the SEO was hot, right? Like when everyone was looking for this in the algorithm, but I didn't because I have other things going on in my life, and thank God for that. Mel, let's take a look at Mel. I've got her character model and the skin loaded up in the model viewer over here. We'll take a look at that later. But for now, let's start by looking at the. I probably don't need the skin spotlight on her counselor skin. Let's look at the champion spotlight, the abilities and her voice and her interactions and stuff to start with, and then we'll take a closer look at the character design and the model. And I'll probably do a proper review for her over on the Shorts channel. Again, really should have done that 4 or 5 days ago, but you know. So this is just an impromptu look at the thing, and yeah, you know what this channel is about. You've been here before, surely. If this is your first time here, sorry, this isn't the professional production channel. This is the I sit down, turn on the microphone, and I just yap about whatever the fuck is in my head channel. And you're just gonna have to deal with that. If you want more structured thoughts, head over to the Shorts channel. Wait for a more structured review thing over there. I almost certainly will not be doing any main channel video essays about Mel as a character. So, yeah, that's just the way it is.
Proving yourself in Noxus is no easy feat, and Mel will use every tool she can to do it, including her enemies' powers. In-game, Mel aims to catch out enemies, poke them down, and deal huge bursts of damage at exactly the right time. Mage players and Arcane fans, it's your time to shine.
See, that immediately is a little bit like Mel in the show, right? Like she aims to catch out enemies, poke them down, and deal huge damage at the exact right time. And like, thinking back on how Mel used her powers in Arcane itself, it was more like she's just kind of walked out there and had a big slug fight, right? Like, it wasn't really like she wasn't really coming at her mother from like, oh yeah, I'm gonna use like special angle, I'm gonna dodge around, I'm gonna catch you out, deal massive damage to the. It was more a thing of like, hey, motherfucker, let's have a fucking duel, and then it's just like her and Caitlyn beating the shit out of Mbessa, or having the shit beaten out of them by Mbessa continuously for a while. She wasn't really being subtle about it. I guess now that she's in Noxus and is learning her powers a little bit better, she's taking a subtler approach. But even then, like in the Bite Mark cinematic, right? Like when Mel has this mind vision of walking towards Noxus and conquering it. Again, it's not really like she was being subtle. She's just walking forwards, and then Noxus starts dropping boulders on her, and she just kind of smashes through them with like overwhelming violence, right? So it's a little bit like, oh, okay, these are very different versions of how the character uses their powers, I think. And that's fine, by the way. That's not really a problem. If you when you want to convert any champion from something like Arcane into a game like League of Legends, it's like, yeah, it's not going to be 1-to-1. It's never going to be 1-to-1 because League of Legends has 170 plus champions at this point. If you just try to port over the specifics, like, because in Arcane, I think what I'm trying to get at, Mel is kind of looks like a shield character, right? In Arcane itself, Mel, the way that her powers work, the way that they're conceptualized, she has the power to make shields and protect people, and then also like infuse her power into other magical powers and like mess with them. That's sort of the visual code. Like, that's when her powers activate at the Super Mega Death Rocket at the end of season 1, right? She shields herself and Jace, and that's it, right? Like, it's not, she doesn't, that's the thing that's kind of awkward about her reflect parry power, right? It's like, hang on, if you could do that the whole time, why didn't you just send the rocket back at Jinx, right? Like, if we're supposed to take your powers in League of Legends as an expression of what her power set actually is, it's like, why, how, but that was just a shield. Like, how did that not reflect the rocket back at, but that's like, doesn't matter. Like, that's not really a thing which is possible, because like there's broadly 2 styles of champion design in League of Legends, and I'm being very, very broad here. Like, you have top down, bottom up, right? Like, these are sort of the very broad general options, and like it's a difference in approach between, here we have a cool champion kit, we've been working on this like cool gameplay idea for a character in League of Legends where like they have some abilities that no other character has ever had. Hey, writers and story people and like artists, come up with a character who fits this cool, fun ability kit that we've invented. to go into the game, right? And that's how a lot of League of Legends champions are designed. Set was designed that way, for example. If you look at his early exploration concept art, they went over a lot. Like, he could have been a robot butler from Piltover. He could have been like a guy with JoJo stand spirit arms kind of things. Like, they went through a bunch of different ideas. He was a Darkin, I think, at one point, until they settled on what Set eventually became. Like, the lore and the story was shaped to fit what they wanted to do with his gameplay primarily. In some cases, you get these, like, the other direction where it's like, okay, we have an idea for a character. This is a character we want to add to the game. This is the story. This is the lore we want. Come up with a gameplay kit that fits that, right? Viego, I believe, is an example of that. Seraphine kind of famously was an example of that. And like that can have consequences in various directions in terms of how their gameplay is designed. But most champions are designed, we have a cool gameplay kit, figure out a character who can fit that. And I would be willing to bet a little bit of money that the Reflect kit, like the abilities that Mel have, this is something that's been iceboxed at Riot. Like, they've had it at Riot for like several years where they were playing around. We want to reflect power. We want to do like parrying. We want to do something like that in game. But they've never been able to make it work or never found a character that could fit it. Mel comes along, they kind of go, oh, she has kind of magic shieldy reflect. She does the ricochet thing with the bullet into Maddie's head in season 2. Cool, that kind of fits. We can adapt this kit to her. I would be willing to bet a little bit of money that that's more or less how that champion design process went. And so her kit in League of Legends, I don't think was formed from the bottom up to suit who she is in Arcane. I think it was more of a marriage of, here is something we know will probably work in League of Legends. We can kind of adapt that to Mel and just pray and hope to God that players don't see this and go, oh, that means Mel canonically has the reflectability in Arcane. Hey, why didn't she use that reflectability more? Right? And that's a vain hope, because players are going to do that because Riot are terrible about communicating their fucking canon to anyone ever, and always have been. And it's another one of the reasons why making Arcane canon was such a stupid fucking idea, because all it does is create more problems, and it doesn't solve the underlying problem that Riot is shit-ass motherfucking terrible at communicating what is canon to the player base. Do you know once upon a time Legends of Runeterra was like, oh yeah, that's all canon. Oh no, wait, now here's actually, this is maybe not canon, this is maybe some exploratory what-if stuff. Actually, none of it is canon at all now, actually, unless we say this, like, they've been shit at that forever, and it creates problems, and this is going to be another problem, because so many people are going to see Mel's kit in-game and assume these are the powers that she will have in the Noxus show as well. And what I'm concerned about is that might lead to a pressure where it'll be a thing like the showrunners for the Noxus show. You have to have Mel have the same powers that she has in League of Legends, please, for the love of God. Every player expects her to have the same abilities in the show that she does in the game, so now she has to have those, and whether or not those abilities are relevant to her storytelling or narrative has to take second fiddle, right? Like, that's my worry, like, because that's happened to things before, and in other franchises. I don't think Arcane, or whatever the Noxus show is going to be called, are immune to that, so... Anyway, that's not relevant to the champion spotlight. 16 seconds in, and I've already talked for 8 minutes. That is an impressive ratio, even for me.
Welcome to the Mel Champion Spotlight.
Any worthwhile venture involves risk.
At least she has her own voice actor, unlike poor Vi and Jinx.
Before anything else, let's cover Mel's signature ability. Her W, Rebuttal. Rebuttal gives her a small burst of move speed. It also grants a barrier that negates damage from anything except towers, and reflects enemy projectiles back at their casters. Auto attacks, waves, missiles, anything that would be blocked by Yasuo's Wind Wall gets reflected by Rebuttal. Reflected projectiles are converted into magic damage, but function as they normally would otherwise. Like this, and that, and this one.
Again, she reflected the Super Mega Death Rocket, right? Why? Is like, they're gonna get so many, the poor lore people, the poor story people at Riot, they're gonna get so many questions about this. There's gonna be videos like, why didn't she just reflect the rocket? If, like, fucking Game Theory might make a video about that or some shit, like, I don't know, like, they're opening themselves up to so much of that, and if they just said, like, no, Arcane is not canon, maybe some champions will show up in League of Legends, but it's completely separate, they have no relation, it's, like, don't take the show as canon to the... but anyway, who cares?
This one, and that one. You get it. Now for Mel's passive, Searing Brilliance. Damaging an enemy with an attack or ability applies a stack of Overwhelm. You can stack Overwhelm infinitely, charging up potential damage. When this damage amount exceeds a target's current health and shields, Overwhelm detonates to execute them.
Nothing I couldn't handle.
Searing Brilliance also empowers Mel's next basic attack to fire 3 additional missiles after casting an ability. She can cast up to 3 abilities in a row to gain a max of 9 extra missiles on her next attack. Mel's Q is Radiant Volley. She unleashes a barrage of explosions in a target area. Each one deals a small amount of damage.
Again, really don't think, like, looking at these auto attacks, looking at the way the passive works, I really don't think it looks very much like her powers do in Arcane. At all.
You can stack Overwhelm infinitely, charging up potential damage. When this damage amount exceeds a target's...
And that's the thing, is like if only that had not been the goal, right? If only making it like Arcane, making it verisimilitudinous with Arcane, if only that wasn't part of the goal here. But it is, because it kind of has to be.
Current health and shields, Overwhelm detonates to execute them.
Nothing I couldn't handle.
Searing Brilliance also empowers Mel's next basic attack to fire 3 additional missiles after casting an ability. She can cast up to 3 abilities in a row to gain a max of 9 extra missiles on her next attack, and stacks her passive. She's a barrage of explosions in a target area. Each one deals a small amount of damage and stacks her passive. Her E is Solar Snare. Mel sends out an orb of unstable energy that files wildly as it travels. Enemies hit by the energy take damage over time and are slowed for the duration. Those who touch the orb itself are rooted. Lastly, Mel's ult is Golden Eclipse. Passively, it increases her damage from Overwhelm stacks. On cast, she unleashes her power on every target marked with Overwhelm, dealing tons...
Again, like, that... Where are her shields? At all? Okay, I'm kind of surprised by this, because, like, I was sitting here saying, okay, like, obviously, like, there's going to be a difference, like she's not really designed to... But, like, is it literally just her W? Is that her only shield ability? Because I would have expected, like, seeing Mel use the shield, like, to ricochet the bullet back in Maddie's head. I would have expected, like, Mel would have the ability to shield allies, right? And that her kit would, at least in part, be built around these very round, these very sort of round, smooth, golden shields and orbs and things like that. Having this, like a global sort of, I mean, essentially global, it must be global, right? But a global Karthus ult that just executes on everyone that she's marked. Boy howdy, there's just like again, this is not League of Legends' fault. It's not really the League of Legends designers' fault. It's they have to make a kit that will work in League of Legends, and that means you have to make a bunch of compromises. It's just that thing of like, if you watched Arcane and you were like, I want to play as Mel Medarda with the Mel Medarda powers in League of Legends, I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed.
Tons of damage based on how many stacks they have. Golden Eclipse does not consume these stacks, so targets are still vulnerable to her passive if she brings them low enough for an execute.
Feel my light.
While this ability can hit monsters, it's only castable if an enemy champion is affected by Overwhelm. So plan your Baron steals accordingly. Mel's damage potential makes her a serious threat in extended fights, but if an opponent can burst her quickly or disengage to wait out the stacks from Searing Brilliance, they'll extinguish a lot of her power. And even though her passive is an execute, it respects magic resist. So bulk up if you don't want to get overwhelmed. The reflect on her W is pretty powerful, but only if an ability is worth reflecting. For example...
This is one thing I really do like about her ability, by the way, is like, you have to be careful. You can't just reflect everything and win every engagement, right? If you reflect a blitz grab, it's like, yeah, cool, you don't get grabbed into blitz, but you do bring blitz into the middle of your team comp, right? And if that means he gets to use his W on like your vulnerable ADC who's standing next to you, or gets to like access to your backline and like use his ult or like do some shit, use the active abilities on some of his items in a way that you don't want him to, I do like that there is that element of risk and reward. Like, I think as a conceptual power, the reflect power is really fucking cool. Having the ability to parry, but then also sometimes that parry can actually cause problems. I think that's very cool. And I'm excited to see someone like Faker get his hands on a power like that.
Champions with sticky engage tools like Amumu and Nautilus won't mind rebuttal one bit. As a backline mage, Mel will really shine for players who like to poke from safety, so give her a try if you play Xerath, Lux, Hwei, or any other artillery champions. Let's skip the rest of the pleasantries, shall we? Get ready to rise with Mel, the soul's reflection.
The Arcane is at my fingertips.
The soul's reflection. Really? She has the W that reflects things, and so she's called the soul's reflection? Really? That's... Come on, guys. Okay, let's have a closer look at the tooltips and shit. Well, it's not an entire novel, but... yeah, again, the ability effects here... the ability effects here feel... like, that's a criticism I genuinely have, is like, there must be something you could do to make her ability effects look more like they do in Arcane. Because these, just for the most part, like especially the shield, right? I can see the diamond, it's sort of the Medarda family sim, like, I can see it. But in League of Legends, her shields were round. Her shields were orbs, right? Like, right? Is it because I'm having a false memory projected on over my head? Like... sorry, I'm looking at Maddie's death scene on YouTube. Yeah, that's a... like, this is gonna drive me a little bit insane. Because that's... no, that's not the thing I need to turn on. I need to turn that on. And then this, and then... that's an orb shield. Like, that's all circles. That's all circles and orbs and, like, the sun imagery. So what's with the crystal thing here? This is genuinely kind of like... hang on. Now I'm kind of weirded out. Why wouldn't you just... why would you... like, again, maybe there's some kind of in-game thing about ability readability. If it just looks like a circle, maybe it looks too similar to a Solaris, like Locket of the Iron Solari Shield. Maybe it looks too similar to some other ability. I can see that, but it's still, like... that's... oh, like... imagine if you are an Arcane viewer and you go... even the color scheme of her abilities, all this red and blood red and, like, dark, there's barely any of that bright, shining gold left that defines how her abilities look in Arcane. If you're an Arcane viewer and a fan of Mel and you go to League of Legends to play as her, man!
Now that I've returned to my family, what challenges await us?
That's just gotta be so... wait, she can fucking even use Shunpo? Surely not. No, that just has to be a spell effect.
Your turn to shine.
But yeah, like, this none... like, because the orb is there when she throws out, like, her solar snare, right? But even that orb just doesn't look like how her spell effects... oh boy, I'm kind of baffled by this. Like, I would have thought that they would try a lot harder to mimic the aesthetics of Arcane with Mel on this one, especially when it comes to her powers. This feels very, very, very distant from how her abilities look in Arcane, in a way that's, like, sort of defeats the purpose, I gotta say. See, that's more like it. Like, now the color tones are generally brighter, but even then... Yeah. Oh, boy. That's...
She's beauty and she's grace. She's...
Did they do a she's beauty, she's a grace meme?
Foolish need not approach.
That's a pretty cool taunt, though. Even the splash art, I feel, I feel a certain distance from the Arcane aesthetic with her. That I'm curious what the process internally at Riot was that they arrived. Because, like, let's actually start with the Arcane skin, right? Like, this is Counselor Mel. This is Mel how we know her in most of Arcane right up until the end when she gets her mage powers, right? Like, this is Mel with the back tattoo and all of that. And this one, yeah, that feels like it would be like playing Mel from Arcane, at least in terms of costume design. Posture and animation, that's the other thing I sort of teed on with Mel, is this does not feel like Mel from Arcane. And I mean that both in terms of, like, obviously this is not Mel being a counselor in Piltover, this is Mel in some kind of a combat situation, right? So it's not like, of course she has different behavior and acting choices. But even, like, again, when I think back to the fight scene when Mel really uses her powers for the first time in a fight against her mother, this is not the vibe of her acting. This, like, with the legs crossed over, like, that very, like, feminine power posture kind of thing. Mel, and again, also in the Love Bite cinematic, is much more direct. She's much more, like, walks forward, uses powers, kicks someone's ass. This highly postured gracefulness kind of thing, that really doesn't feel like Mel in serious power mode. Even it doesn't even really feel like Mel. We've seen her at parties, right? Like, we've seen her, like, operating politically in situations where she's supposed to put on a performance. This high femme power posing, it really doesn't feel like Mel. That really doesn't feel like how she approaches things. This imperiousness. And, of course, this could reflect a shift in her character, right? Like, when she goes to Noxus, she knows that a different affect, a different kind of behavior is necessary in order to get ahead, right? Like, in order to get shit done in Noxus, you have to put on this aesthetic of power, right? Like, this aesthetic of posturing and, like, regality and grandness. I can see that. Like, that, okay, sure. But then that's the Mel who appears in Noxus and not and whatever the Noxus show is going to be, and it's not the Mel who appears in Arcane, which, again, I mean, if this is just like we're foreshadowing who Mel is going to be in the Noxus show, fair enough. Like, I'll take the L on that one. Like, that's okay. That's foresight. Like, that's like, that's I applaud them for being willing to take a hit on the recognizability now in order to gain a lot of recognizability for who she's going to be and how she's going to behave later. By the way, the way that all of this looks quite awkward with the anatomy and stuff like that from the front, it's because it's supposed to be viewed like this. I should bring this up just in case. She's supposed to be viewed from this angle, which means when you are down at ground level, artists and animators, like, they will exaggerate break models in various ways that don't make any sense from the front, but which do make sense from this perspective here, in order to hide or highlight or show different parts of the character, make them visible. So this is not bad animation, right? This is not a problem. The fact that the model is squashed a bit weirdly, or that her posture is so extreme, that's because you're mostly supposed to see her like this, right? And so exaggerating and making things more extreme is, like, good practice for that. Just want to bring that up in case anyone's sort of confused about that in the comments. That's not really what I'm teeing off on here. It's the acting choices of her idle pose here. And I like idle poses a lot. Because idle poses, I find, are... Like, here's how she leaves her idle pose, for example, right? Like, this swooping the cloak back and, like, striding forward. right? Like these big imperious motions. Again, it's entirely plausible and possible that in the Noxus show, Mel is going to take on this personality. It's like maybe this is who she's going to be in the Noxus show, whatever happens next. But it isn't the thing I'll hold on to, and I'm going to insist on. This is not Mel from Arcane. This really doesn't feel like the Mel that we know. This feels like a very different character combined with the differences in how her powers combined with the differences in how her powers are constructed, combined with the extreme differences in visual effects, these acting choices, this feels like a very different person. It just... like, Mel doesn't walk like this. She really doesn't in Arcane, if you pay attention to how Mel walks, even when she's being demonstrative, even when she's being imperious. This is not a Mel walk cycle. Like, this is not how the animators at Fortiche ever chose to present her. And again, League of Legends, different needs. You have to have a very long stride. You have to have a run. But even within that, the affect, the attitude, the behavior, the posture, the way the character poses, the way the character relates to their environment, these are all things that are available. I kind of don't like this run cycle very much. Okay, deal with that later. Even within that, there's a lot of character expressiveness you can get from the way a character carries themselves. And I'm just not getting the Mel I know. I'm sorry, I'm going to harp on about this for a while, a lot, I think, because... like, this is the first time that I feel like I'm really seeing a version of Mel that feels more... also... oh, I love a good squash and stretch. Like this, right? Like this power posing forward, challenging, saying, fucking come at me, right? Like, I have my powers and I'll use them. That feels much closer to who Mel is, how she is, at the end of Arcane Season 2. Like, that feels much closer to how she would use her powers, to how she would behave, in terms of how she handles her physicality. It really does not feel at all like Mel. This run cycle is kind of okay. Like, the big arm-pumping motions here to me feel like they're designed to do that. They're designed to make the skirt and the sash pump in the wind. Like, they're supposed to make them go back and forth. Same thing with this animation. Like, the reason why she pumps her arms weirdly like that, I think, is to generate that specific motion from the sash. And like, but even from the in-game perspective, the way she kind of flails her hand, the uneven arm pumping, it looks kind of clumsy. In a way that I really don't think it's supposed to. I think there's something that's not working here. Like, this to me feels less like a run cycle of someone running forward. It feels more like she's stumbling a little bit. It feels like she's lost her balance and she's trying to compensate, so she's flailing her arms and, like, running forward to catch herself. This, I really don't... like, this is better. Like, she's Naruto running, right? But again, it's to make the sash do the thing. I don't know where this run cycle... I think this is when she's hasted. It's not her home guard. And this would be when she has boots, right? But this run cycle, I really don't like. It feels very uneven. And it feels a bit clumsy for Mel. Which, again, like if this is her... if her base run cycle is this, right? Like this elegant, hip-pumping, like carrying the sash back and forth, like if this is like the energy she's supposed to bring of like this regal, imperious, powerful, high femme sort of runway strut, then this feels really kind of... This really doesn't feel great, I gotta say. This feels kind of clumsy and flailing in a way that doesn't seem like it makes sense for Mel. I do like this, right? Her fast run, and then whoop, that to transition into her walk. That's a nice little transitional animation. I like that a lot. I do appreciate a good Naruto run. I do. And I guess this is where we need to talk about the sashers that she's got. Because they were another change, an interesting change to the character. Like, these feel a lot like Mel, if she just was wearing either the outfit from the cinematic, like the bite mark cinematic, or if she was wearing something, if they decided to do her Piltover version, and they just gave her the Piltover dress, her silhouette would be almost indistinguishable from, like, I think a number of other characters. So I think this, to me, reads, first of all, as a play to change her silhouette, to give Mel a very unique silhouette, so you can't confuse her with Karma, you can't confuse her with any other, character, like, in the way that if she doesn't have anything, right? Because the problem is Mel's powers don't rely on any kind of tool, right? Syndra has her orbs, Karma has, like, the rotating sigil that sort of floats behind her, LeBlanc has a staff, right? Like, most mages, same thing with Janna, like, they'll have an implement, some kind of unique object or character feature that symbolizes their source of power, right? Like, that can sort of be, okay, and that gives them a unique silhouette. Mel doesn't have that because her powers are all internal, right? Like, she projects energy outwards. So there's nothing there to work with. So I think this sash is entirely about creating a unique silhouette for her, like to make her stand out very specifically as, this is that character, only this character has that silhouette, make her recognizable at a glance, right? Like, I think that's what this is very much about. And also in order to, because like without that, if you do skins for her, without that very recognizable silhouette element, she becomes completely unrecognizable in skins. So I think this is a very good move, right? What it also does as a character design thing, it interacts very well with this attitude for Mel, right? Like this, I am powerful, I'm strutting, I'm owning the runway, I am like in my feminine energy, I am taking charge, I'm a girl boss. Like all of that, that's all very well aided by this, because all of this is stuff that's associated with like royalty, it's associated with runways, it's associated with very specific kinds of like, of power. It's like a cape, right? It's like a long cloak or something like that. So it's associated with all these things, and it emphasizes this version of Mel very well. Again, it feels like something Mel from Arcane wouldn't wear. Again, maybe she will in Noxus. Maybe in Noxus you have to do this in order to... I'm recognizing that that's a distinct possibility, but it also, even at a party, even when she's supposed to show off, this doesn't feel like a Mel outfit. This doesn't feel like how she would show off power. Because Mel, the way that she displays her power, the way that she displays her wealth in her character design in Arcane is... I mean, I wouldn't say subtle exactly. She wears a lot of fucking gold. But it is a kind of display because it sort of ties into Mel's self-conception, right? Like, Mel likes to think of herself as someone who strikes the rational deal, right? Like, who comes up with a situation that's best for everyone, but certainly also good for her, right? Like, she has this affect of being someone who is somewhat caring, like somewhat present, somewhat practical. Like, that's very much a part of her characterization, right? It's like, she's the one who thinks about these things practically, right? Like, Jace has all of these ideals and all this idealism, and he doesn't want to do corruption on the council, but Mel is someone who knows politics and how it works, and she knows that, yes, we'll have to do a little bit of corruption to get things done, but that's normal, that's okay, I'm practical, I'm taking, like she's more in line with that. That's Mel's personality, right? Like, taking like, looking beautiful, but treating the fact that she looks beautiful, the fact that she has this look, as a tool, right? As a part of like, this is just a practical tool that I need in order to do my job. That's where her character sort of is. This feels different than that. This doesn't feel like a character who's like practically thinking about, okay, I need to project a certain kind of power. How can I do that in a way that doesn't like hinder my my mobility or like cause me too much trouble, right? Like, how can I do that in a way that's not a potential liability to me? This thing is a potential liability, right? Like, this is a thing that gets in the way. This is a thing that's impractical to work with or deal with or go around with. And so, at least my understanding of Mel, when I think about how would she character design herself to project power, this doesn't really feel like a Mel choice to me. Like, I think Mel would look for something that is, like, still ostentatious, still loud, that still projects power and confidence, but which doesn't, like, get her into a situation where she keeps having to worry about whether people will step on the thing that she's carrying behind her, or whether it'll knock things over, or whether it'll get in the way of her doing the actual things that she wants to do, which is to strike deals and talk to people, right? Find consensus, like engage in politics, engage in discussion. Those are the things that Mel wants to do. That's how she projects her power in Arcane. This doesn't feel like a character design feature that says that. This is a character design feature that says, I am here! Look at me! I'm the queen of this room! Fuck you, peasant! Right? Like, that's the sort of power play of this outfit thing. So I completely understand it as an in-game thing. Like, as a way to give Mel a unique silhouette in-game, it's brilliant. It interacts very well with her animation, the way that she's animated here. But again, it's one of those features that's like, this doesn't feel like Mel. This doesn't feel like Mel Medarda from Arcane. It doesn't feel like Mel Medarda from Arcane after she has discovered her mage powers either, because there, she's wearing like these very tight fitting suits that give her maximum freedom of movement and mobility so that she can do her magic motions and movements and things like that. Again, think back to the fight scene with Ambessa, right? She wasn't wearing a big ostentatious dress even though she wanted to look impressive and intimidating. She was wearing something that let her move, right? So I don't know, like this is good character design from the perspective of game design, right? Like, from the perspective of game design, this is a very good feature. As an expression of a character who's from the show Arcane, I'm really not sold on it. I'm really not. And I'm kind of surprised by that, because, like, initially when I saw Mel, my initial reaction to her was actually mostly positive. I actually mostly thought that this really worked, but I think it's the VFX. The VFX combined with, like, the very different animation choices that are being made here, combined with, like, it's all of that stuff in combination, just, it does not add up to a greater whole that says Mel Medarda to me. Oh, I'm gonna have some thoughts about those. Speaking of Mel being someone who's, like, who dresses beautiful in order to show off her power, but also tends to be practical, those are metal spikes. If she tries to bend over even a little bit, if she so much as, like, tips her torso for 1 second, those are metal spikes that are going to drive directly into her flesh. Why is she wearing that? This is supposed to be Nox's aesthetic, right? Like, it's supposed to be Nox's aesthetic stuff, and, like, fine, spikes, metal, I get it, but, and that arm ring? Just with, hang on. Oh, shit, that actually is on her model. I didn't see it because I read that as part of the puffy sleeve, but... Oh, no, those arm rings are terrible. Oh, those are not good at all. Oh, that sucks. Those are real bad. So, I think the attempt here with these spiky arm rings... Let me just put her in her T-pose. It's easier to... There we go. I think the attempt with this is the Medarda family symbol, right? Like, with the spike and with all of the... And it's also supposed to be, like, that's why we have the green that enters here, right? These are, like, Draven's colors, right? Like, this is... Nox's primarily black and red, but then it has this secondary color of, like, this dark teal, which, like, shows up in a bunch of the champions. Draven is most prominent, like, his bodysuit is made of the same color. It's supposed to be the Noxian aesthetic, because Nox's is all about heavy metal plates and, like, iron spikes and stuff like that, sure. But the way that these things sit there interrupting... Oh, I don't like that at all. First of all, the color. Like, this sheer gray steel is I don't think it's interacting well with the gold, with the brown, with like the teal and the red going out into her sleeves. I think this feels very interruption-y. Same thing with this weird titty window that she's wearing. I can see the idea from a shape language perspective to have something here that breaks up the shape of her torso a little bit, that adds a little bit of visual interest. I can see that. The fact that there's metal spikes pointed directly towards her sternum, the fact that it's so visibly obvious that if she tries to bend so much as a little bit in any direction, that this is so constraining for her mobility, I think that undercuts, like, even the version of the character that they want her to be here, right? Like, we talked about, even this, like, the power posing, the queen of the situation, even that, this is an Iron Maiden. Like, as a signifier, spikes that point inwards towards yourself, those are signifiers of, like, self-punishment, or mortification, or someone who is, like, trapped or entrapped in some way. So that, like, unless that's very specifically supposed to be a little visual clue that Mel feels very trapped in all of this and it actually hurts her, and she feels like pain, like this, she feels very inflexible, like there's pain all around her that like, okay, again, maybe that's what it is in the Noxus show, but it doesn't feel like something Mel Arcane would ever wear for any reason if she didn't absolutely, like, if someone didn't force her into that, Mel Arcane would not wear a piece of clothing that pointed spikes directly at her own sternum, because that's not a demonstration of strength. That's a demonstration of weakness. Like that, like I think I can sort of hear the argument right now. Oh well, it's because she's demonstrating that she's so powerful and like she'll point spikes directly at her stuff. But that's not Mel, right? Like, there is a version of a power fantasy, like a barbarian sort of character, like someone who's like, oh, I'm so powerful, I, like, drive spikes into my own flesh, like, that exists, right? Like, I'm thinking of Horalu from Elden Ring, the thing of, like, having this lion constantly chomping into his shoulder. That's a thing that exists. I don't think that jives at all with Mel as a character. Mel is the character who always finds some way around, right? Who always works out some way to get around things. Even in her final scene in Arcane Season 2, right? The way that she beats LeBlanc is by finding a way to, like, she entraps LeBlanc by sacrificing her own mother. That's how she beats LeBlanc, right? That's why Ambessa recognizes her as the wolf, because Mel is the person who's willing, in an extreme, to, like, sacrifice her own mother. She's flexible, right? She's flexible. She's not rigid. She is not stuck in her ways. She's flexible. That's a very big part of her characterization. That's why she's the wolf in Ambessa's eyes, is because Mel is the person who has the flexibility to make sacrifices that are necessary, right? This is not that. Like, as a signifier, pointing spikes inwards towards yourself, this self-mortification is like, I will go through with my intended path inflexibly, against all pain. I will, like, if there is a wall of spikes in my way, I will walk through the spikes. That's what that says, right? That doesn't say I'll find a way around. That doesn't say I'll figure out a clever way to get around this. That doesn't say I will find a way to circumnavigate every obstacle. It says I go through everything, right? And I suffer pain for it. I make that sacrifice. I hurt myself in order to achieve my goals on purpose, right? And that's just not really Mel. It really isn't. Not the character that we know. Again, different in the Noxus show. Sure, maybe, I can see that. I'll take the L if the Noxus show comes out, and this is the character that she turns into. I'm curious to see what kind of process she would have to go through to become this, because it wouldn't be casual. This is kind of the same situation with the fucking Arcane skins. It's like, this is a good character design. Let me just say that. This is a good character design that I like. If it hadn't been Mel, this, for a LeBlanc redesign, like a long shawl that she trails after herself, like to give her this as an element of like a Syndra redesign, even just as a new mage character who isn't Mel, all of this is cool. And on any other character, like this thing about pointing spikes inwards towards your own flesh to symbolize your strength of will and stuff like that, absolutely could have worked. This could be very good character design. I can't accept it as Mel. This everything about this flies in the face of my understanding of who this character is. Even from the perspective of she's putting on a costume and pretending to be more Noxian than she really is. This feels not like that at all. And anyway, like, my complaint about the arm rings is not that. My complaint about the arm rings is I just don't think that interacts very well with the shape language of the rest of it, and certainly not with the colors. I would not have put them there. Like, if you wanted these spiky Medarda symbols, I think there were other places you could put them. Even, like, have them hanging as rings instead of these, like, so there's a little bit of rose petal imagery, I think, in this thing she's wearing around her waist, like this clasp or whatever it is that's holding on to this, to the train, the whatever these are called. There's some rose petal imagery in there. Maybe there's a black rose kind of reference-ish, something along those lines. But I would have taken these and then added them as, like, these would be the things that held on the sash, like the thing, hanging on the side of her waist, sort of pointing down, reflecting the Medarda family symbol. I don't really like them as arm rings. That's just the thing. That's not about her character. That's not about, oh, that doesn't feel like Mel as a character. This just feels kind of ugly. This just doesn't look really like high Noxian fashion to me at all. Which is the other thing, is like, this looks okay like a Noxian character that you would see in Legends of Runeterra. From what we've seen of Noxus in the little bits that we've seen in Arcane and the Bite Mark cinematic, this doesn't feel like Noxian fashion, high fashion, at all. So, but yeah, whatever. Yeah, no, I started with much more positive feelings, because she looks badass, right? Like, that's the thing, is like, for all of my complaints, she looks cool, right? This looks like a very cool, powerful character. It just doesn't feel like her. That's the thing, it just does not feel like her. Oh, man. Yeah, no, oh boy. I thought I was going to have more positive things to say. At least this does feel like Mel, right? Like, because it retains the color scheme, because even with the train, even with the sash thing, even with the new posture and all of that, because it is her costume from Arcane, just literally translated into, this does feel like her, right? It feels like Mel in a very weird mood. It feels like Mel in a very odd situation that we've never seen her occupy in Arcane ever, but it does feel like the color scheme and the costuming does pull it back and say, okay, well, it has to be her, because, like, no one else dresses like that. But this, ultimately, this just does not. Man, I'm kind of sad about that. I was kind of hoping I would have more nice things to say. Damn, let's listen to her voice.
I see your face, deceiver, and you shall never forget mine.
Once upon a time, when Champions came out, they would have like 20 minutes of voiceover. Actually, let's skip the voice. Oh, those are the special interactions. Okay. But then this one is also that?
What will prevail? Our effect.
I guess those were new. Okay, let's start with this.
Deceiver, and you shall never forget mine. Mother, I'm ready to show you what I've learned.
Again, League of Legends is not canon. Summoner's Rift is not canon. Nothing that happens here is supposed to be considered canon. Riot should not have breached that by saying, oh, it's Mel from Arcane. No, it's not. This is not Mel from Arcane. That's the other thing, is like, if they'd just done this and been like, this is not Mel from Arcane. This has nothing to do with Arcane. This is, who would Mel be in... Like, if Arcane was a separate canon from League of Legends, right? Then you could have this version of the character who's a very different expression of the same person, in the same way that Vi in League of Legends is very different from Vi in Arcane, that Jinx in League of Legends is very different from Jinx in Arcane. You could have, okay, this is like the League of Legends version of Mel, who's a very different person, like expressed very differently. This would have been fine. But then they were like, no, all of it is one unified canon, actually, and then that makes everything
A
bad.
man with an inflated ego. Groundbreaking. Our alliance was fruitful, Kiraman. A pity it had to end.
Again, this is when Caitlyn is on the opposite team.
Professor, is this your last act of defiance?
So she's sounding
despair.
really
What is it
cold.
that haunts you, Hui? What will prevail? Our affection or our ambition?
Again, Jace on the other team.
I overlooked your mayhem once, Jinx. I will not repeat that mistake. Let's see whose light shines brighter. You move.
I'm sorry, Mel, but it's Lux. Like, sorry, she will always get more skins than you, forever. I'm sorry. It's not fair, but that's the way Lux will get the most skins. Her light will always prevail because she is the mascot character. It'd be nice if she wasn't anymore. I would like you to win, but I don't think you will.
Through this world as I once did, Senna. As if you fear losing yourself to your past. Tell me, Jericho Swain, is your vision as sharp as your tongue? Vi, when you try to please everyone, no one is satisfied. You claim to desire peace.
That's actually a pretty good read on Vi. It's like, yeah, no, like the fact that she keeps trying to please everyone is a part of her problem in Arcane. That's actually very true.
But it seems our definition may differ.
That one's not so biting though. You claim to. That's very much a. That's a smug reply guy on Twitter ass line. It's like, oh, you claim to desire peace. Well, it seems like our definitions of the word might differ. And then they post like a screenshot of like the Oxford Online Dictionary.
I never thought I'd see the day. Let us fight together, Mother, as equals. My mother is willing to sacrifice anything. Anyone. If you value your life, do not hold back. You taught me well, Mother. A wolf has no mercy.
It really is. Again, I think at this point I've reached the decision that I don't want to review Arcane Season 2 until it's like a year old. Until the SEO is gone, until no one gives a shit anymore. I don't want to go into this at a time when people are still discoursing about it. I want to do this much later, but Mel and the way that Ambessa successfully turns her into the wolf even when she doesn't want to be. There's some deep, potent tragedy in that story that I wish Season 2 had had some more time to build that out and build that up, because it does not land with nearly as much impact as it's supposed to at the end of Act 2, Season 2, I don't think.
You are no Medada.
Ooh.
Draven. Such bravado and such fragility. With my deepest respect and appreciation, Professor. From one artist to another, your passion outshines the pain.
I do like that she has like this little thing with wit because she's a painter as well. It's like, oh, that's nice.
Another love, torn away. Goodbye, Jace. Such senseless chaos, Jinx. Tell the...
Well, it's not really senseless, Mel, is the thing. It's like, it's in fact, it makes perfect sense if you just consider the material circumstances that she lives in. But, you know, that's part of the weakness of your power system, is that you couldn't see that. Anyway, that's a different thing.
Others, I'm coming for them, sister. Even in defeat, your light never dimmed. Senna, there is no more past. Rest now. General, didn't foresee this outcome, did you? Was the badge worth it, Vi?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mel. You do not. Not for one fucking second, you don't get to make... What do you mean, was a badge worth it? You of all people, Mel Medarda, like, you don't get to give Vi shit for signing up with the authorities as a means to power. Like, you of all people, Mel, holy shit. Was a badge worth it? I'm sorry. Isn't your whole fucking story about, like, hey, was political power in Piltover really worth it? She decides very often, like, oh my god, you don't get to say that to her. Rich girl, what the fuck?
And here I thought you were more than another man with a god complex. Welcome to war. They fall before me like long shadows cast by a setting sun.
It's also, again, this is League of Legends Mel, right? Like, if this wasn't supposed to be Arcane Mel, 90% of my criticisms wouldn't really exist, I think. But again, this may be at the end of the Noxus show, but this doesn't feel like Mel. Right? After a pentakill, after like defeating a huge number of very dangerous foes in single combat, I don't think Mel would be like, yes, fall before me, I am the I think Mel would be kind of like satisfied at a plan that she executed correctly. And like, I think she'd say something more along the lines of like, it's regrettable that this was necessary. That feels more like Mel to me in a lot of ways. Like, maybe if it's someone she really fucking hates, I guess. Again, maybe at the end of the Noxus show or whatever, but really doesn't feel they shouldn't have made it canon. They shouldn't have made it canon. God damn it.
Not approach. My apologies. I don't recall asking for your input. She's beauty and she's grace. She's... Empty platitudes provide little comfort. If blood must be drawn to secure our safety, so be it.
That is an accurate line to Mel, though. Like, that, at the end of Season 2, this is something that Mel probably would assent to. Although she's also very notably the person who says, how about we don't draw blood, though? How about we find a way to not do that? That's sort of more her position for most of the show.
Medardas are known for our strategy and strength. Follow my direction and we'll emerge from this victorious. There's no telling what fate has in store for us. All we can do is move forward. I am no stranger to war. Allow me to finish what our foes have started.
That feels very her.
Perhaps it's time for the era of the Arcane.
After what Victor almost did? Are you sure about that? Are you sure that that's what Mel would... Again, maybe they have some very different plans for her, but that does not feel like... Like, given what she's just experienced, given that the way that she's just seen a mage actively ruin her life and murder her mother and her brother, what she's seen Victor do with the Arcane, I don't know that Mel would come out of that and be like, actually, you know what? Let's do more magic. Like, magic is cool and good and based, actually, and this should be an entire era based on just magic. I don't know that doesn't feel like the way that Mel came out of Season 2. The way that Mel came out of Season 2 feels a lot more like I have to go find answers, right? Who am I? Where did I come from? What happened to me? Like, why all of why was I being chased by the Black Rose? Why did they want me? Why did they kill my mother to get to me? It doesn't feel like, yes, actually, magic is cool and based and the world should revolve around it. That doesn't feel like her very much.
It seems as if my absence has left you doubting my abilities. I'll resolve that misconception. My family once cast me out, yet part of me still loves them. Everything I accomplished in Piltover means little in the eyes of Noxus.
That's true.
To think these gifts were hidden within me. The lives I could have saved.
That feels like that's another thing about Arcane, right? I wish Mel had had more time to come to terms with her powers. Like, that she had actually had time to come to terms with the fact that she's a mage and like, oh my god, what could I have done with this if I'd known it earlier? Who could I have been if my mother had been honest with me sooner in my life, right? But the Arcane Season 2 doesn't have time for that because I'll hold my tongue for that.
Raised in Noxus, shaped by Piltover, tainted with magic.
Right? Again, like, there's a incoherence here. On the one hand, you have her saying, maybe it's time for the era of the Arcane, and then you have say, oh, I'm tainted with magic. Well, which is it then? Does she think magic is cool and based, or does she consider it a kind of curse that's been laid upon her? Because at the end of Season 2, Mel, to me, feels a lot more like she's in camp, this is a curse and it kind of sucks, but oh well, I have it, I guess I'll use it. Rather than, oh my god, these superpowers, I love them. Right? Like, I think she's conflicted and feels weird about having the powers that she does. That seems to be... Yeah, I don't know.
Many
this
question
feels a bit
my
incoherent.
motives, but their whispers do not define me. Lies may seed hope in the naive, but they erode the roots of those who plant them. Revenge is short-sighted. I cannot submit to its temptations. With each obstacle I overcome, I leave behind a chasm of uncertainty. I feel them watching, desperate for something that proves I'm unfit to lead. Let them waste their time.
Yeah, okay. See, this feels very much like we're foreshadowing the Noxus show, right? I feel them watching, desperate for something that proves them unfit to lead, let them waste their time. That feels like, okay, she sees other people in Noxus. So it is setting up for Mel in the Noxus show, I guess. That has to be what this is, then. Like, this feels explicitly like that. Like, this feels like it's referencing a storyline that's going to happen in Noxus, where it's like, she comes to Noxus, she's like, I'm the last Medarda, I'm taking over the house, and then a bunch of people doubt her and say, like, oh, you can't take over the house, you're like, you're Piltover, that's not a real place. Like, sure, okay. I guess that confirms that that's what we're doing. I still think that's a weird decision. I don't think it's a good decision, but okay.
For so long, I wanted to regain my family's respect, but I wasn't prepared for what it would cost me. The Medardas depend on my strength, my unwavering conviction.
What Medardas? You're the last one. What? Are there more Medardas? Because, like, that's why Ambessa came to Piltover to protect you, is because you were the last one. You were the last piece of family that she had to protect. I guess she means the house, right? So the servant, maybe there's a branch, like maybe it's a nobility thing, was like there's a branch of the family tree somewhere back there, and now, like, I don't know. What do you mean, the Medardas? I guess as the Noxian house of the Medardas still exists, I guess, and people are members of it even if they aren't of the family. Okay.
Stay with me. My presence alone is your final warning. What is it that you hope to accomplish? Willing to risk your life for this endeavor? It's not too late for you to turn back.
These lines feels a lot more like Mel, right? Like Mel, the character who's like, I'd rather avoid conflict. I don't really want to fight if I don't have to. I would rather make allies than enemies. That's the Mel that I remember from Arcane. These are good. I like these.
I suggest you reconsider. There's no reason for you to suffer.
Yes.
Something tells me you're not interested in a peaceful resolution. Your promises will not sway me. The perfect creature to test the limits of my magic. This conflict was beyond your comprehension. Well, I would have preferred a compromise.
There we go. That's good.
Thought I'd lighten the mood a little.
What?
Nothing I couldn't handle. Another malefactor subdued. An avoidable outcome. Shame.
Yeah, see there, like that feels more like the kind of thing, the kind of sentiment that she would have after doing a pentakill is like, well, maybe if I'd been a better negotiator, they wouldn't have had to come to this. Like, if I had been smarter in the negotiation table, I wouldn't have had to do this to you. Oh well. Or if you'd just taken my offer of peace, this wouldn't have had to happen. That feels more like a Mel sentiment than they fall before me.
They never listen. You were in over your head. Call it magical intervention.
Also, her literally just taunting people after she's killed them is also a thing that doesn't feel particularly Mel-like.
Such negotiations are rarely linear. Just a moment. I require additional resources. Constant use of my magic is beginning to take a toll. A brief break should do the trick. Medardas stay ready at all times, be it with friend or foe. Fatigue is the enemy of success.
Shut up.
Rest is strategic, restoring the body and reigniting the mind.
I am fine on 4 hours of sleep, Mom. Leave me alone.
A mere oversight? My magic still flows. Do my sigils protect it? Adapt to their behavior. No more mistakes. No, I was born to lead. I will show them why. So I've returned. Yet another mystery. Focus. Do not lose your composure. I'll outshine them all. Reposition. A paradigm shift. With grace. Pace yourself. Catch this. Mind your step. The wrath of the Medardas. Your last resort. Steady is stagnant. The Black Rose will answer for all that they've done. I choose to forgive whenever possible. What else is hidden beneath my sigils?
These feel more like Mel. I choose to forgive whenever possible. That feels like Mel.
I deserve everything I've attained. I know that now. Compassion does not beget weakness. To blend in, we shed authenticity. Inaction invites regret. Change is the only constant.
She'd get along well with Alawi.
A true leader is secure in her judgment. Kino, I should have been there for you. Only trust those who've earned it. Leadership requires one to learn quickly and constantly. The best lies are wrapped in truth. I'm no longer bound by her standards. See through deception. Any worthwhile venture involves risk. Things were so much simpler on the Council. Any desire can be exploited. Now that I've returned to my family, what challenges await us?
What? Okay, hang on. I'm just I'm just looking at the wiki here, cause like I was just getting like, hang on, have I just completely missed a whole bunch of like that they teased? My understanding from Arcane, sorry, I'm really like, what family, Mel? What, do you just have other relatives that were never brought up at any point in the show? Arcane gave me the distinct impression that it was you and your mom. You were the last ones. What do you mean returned to your family? Again, does she have more family members? Is there another uncle? Because that feels like a pretty big fucking retcon to me. Not that it necessarily is, but I'm confused where that came from.
Assess the surroundings, anticipate any outcome. The wolf, the fox, both necessary, both unrelenting. The arcane is at my fingertips. Spare the pleasantries. I protect my own. You're in my way. Do not test me. I cannot be undone. My patience. You seem ill-prepared. I did my best. Kino. Mother. I couldn't. Does my family fall with me?
Again, yes. Unless there's a bunch of them just around that we never heard. That genuinely confuses me. Like, did I just completely misinterpret Arcane? That Mel was the last of the Medardas after everything?
What will prevail? Our anything.
Okay, yeah, these are all the same lines we've already heard. So this one.
Mel, whatever happens, if you're with me, I'm with you.
Boy, it just... Oh...
We've both changed.
I really... It really is a thing of, like... This is not the skin's fault or whatever. Like, just... But the fact that they... That this is just not the same voice, even a little bit. Like, the guy doing the Jace voice isn't even trying to do an impression of Arcane Jace.
Changed, Mel. But are we beyond repair? Mel, show me who you've become. Show me you're the one in control. What are you planning, Mel? For me. For us. You were luminous, Mel. Always.
Okay, I think that's all of them then, by the looks of it. Yeah. Yeah, no, oh boy. Oh boy, I don't, man. So it looks like I'm just right that all of this is setting up for the Noxus show, right? Like, they have a plot for the Noxus show in mind already. They're trying to set Mel up to reflect the character she will be in that one, which is a bold move, because they're basically anticipating that that will be the more popular version of the character than the one from Arcane. I don't think they'll be right about that, but okay. I can't judge it on that standard right now, though. Like, I can't sit here and be like, oh, this will probably be great once the Noxus show is out. Because it's not out. No one knows what's going to be in the fucking Noxus show. No one knows if the Noxus show is even going to be any fucking good. So I can't really give it credit for that. As an expression of Mel Medarda, the character that we know, this is not very good. This is a pretty bad version of Mel Medarda from the hit TV show Arcane. And I guess that's not what it's trying to be. It's trying to be a very different version of the character from a very different point in time in her life, which, okay, fair enough. I guess. All right. Sure. This run animation still kind of sucks, though. Like, I'm sorry, I'll insist on that. That whatever the hell she's doing with her elbow here, that's not how a person runs. From any perspective. That's not a good arm pump. I really don't like that. Okay, fine. Every single one of my other criticisms, sure, we'll pretend that they're invalid because maybe there'll be a TV show in the future that justifies them, sure. But I will hold on to this. This run animation is bad. Please don't make her run like that. Please change that. Oh boy. Oh boy. I have decidedly mixed feelings about this. I guess I'm excited to watch the Noxus show, though. I guess that's something. Right. I have to I should really have this up on screen before I start recording videos, but fuck me for being who I am. I have this merchandise store. You can buy stuff on it. There's a mug down here that has a rant about Kaisa's character design on it. That's all that's on it. It's just a long rant about Kaisa's character design and the problems with it. It's been pretty popular. People like it because of a reason. Because you're all weirdos. There's also other stuff. You can buy it if you want to. Patreon, blah, blah, blah. Check the description if you want to support me, but you don't have to if you don't want to. Boy, howdy. Okay, I'm gonna write a review of Mel for my Shorts channel and condense these thoughts into something that makes a little bit more sense, I guess. Bye.